Now, let's move on, because with just 30 days to go until the October 31st Brexit deadline, the UK government is set to publish proposals for an amended agreement. But leaks of their plans are already causing headaches. Our correspondent Vincent McAvity joins us now from the Conservative Party conference in Manchester. OK, Vincent, tell us more about what's in this leaked document and how Boris Johnson is responding to it.
Good afternoon, Tessa. Well, 3 words, get Brexit done, are on all the posters and signs here at this conference, and it's the mantra coming out of all the politicians, but it's still not clear how they will do that, because the government has been distancing itself from this leak to the Irish media of these possible plans for the Northern Irish border, having some customs centres around 5 to 10 miles on either side of the border in the Republic and Northern Ireland, where vehicles would have to go through to be processed. Now, Boris Johnson has been saying that whilst this isn't their plans, it is the reality, he says, of Brexit, that there needs to be some customs checks. Here's what he had to say in full.
We have to protect the integrity of the United Kingdom. We also have to protect Ireland, make sure that Ireland continues to enjoy the benefits of the single market, make sure we protect the Good Friday peace process, make sure there are no checks at the border. And I think one thing is clear: we don't want to see new border posts just away from the border. That's not what we're envisaging. I think there may be some confusion about that, but I'm not going to minimise this. This is the moment when we all really have to try to make progress and get this thing over the line.
All right, that was Boris Johnson there reacting to the leaks. And joining us for this discussion is Maria Walsh. She's an Irish MEP from the European People's Party. We also have Lucas Mandel, an Austrian MEP also from the EPP. And we have with us Darren McCaffrey, our political editor. All right, I mean, this Boris Johnson there was not giving away much about what he's going to be presenting to the EU. But if we are to look at the reports on RTE, on what has been said so far, I mean, will that actually change anything?
Well, it's very difficult to even talk about change when nothing has really been put forward. Even speaking in our Taoiseach went in our own Leinster House, our own head of government, just about an hour ago to opposition and answered questions. The leaked papers are one thing. The fact that Prime Minister is distancing himself from it is quite
and is
relieving.
it even a new idea? I'm not sure.
Yeah. And I think that's our problem. We're just not we're not seeing new ideas, and we're days away from sitting before council. And the fact is, we have people living north and south of the border, and every day, every hour that goes by, the question of, are we moving away from the peace process?
Even if we're not talking about the border, but then it's a few miles from the border. I mean, if that is the idea, we don't know yet what is going to be presented.
Well, Boris Johnson is suggesting that this isn't the idea, that this is part of a whole plethora of stuff that's been suggested, but it's not the official position of the British government, seemingly that you try and have an invisible border but replace it with 2 hard borders 5 or 10 miles away from where it's meant to be. And we haven't actually seen thus far what the detailed proposals are from the British government. What was most interesting about what Boris Johnson had to say today is saying that there will have to be 2 different customs territories on the island of Ireland, which is not what Theresa May necessarily signed up to back in 2017. It is not what the backstop is meant to achieve. And so in those circumstances, there is going to have to be some form of checks. And it must be said, checks not just from the British government. The European Union wants to maintain its single market. It's going to have to carry out customs checks too. But it is clear that we're now getting to this crunch time, just a couple of weeks ahead of that EU summit, when actually the British are going to have to come up with what their plans really are.
Lucas, do you think that there are expectations that the British, like Boris Johnson, will come here with something new? Are there even expectations that
I, as a parliamentarian, actually question the reliability of Boris Johnson. I guess more reliable than Boris Johnson are the parliamentarians, the colleagues in the lower house in Great Britain, who showed also in the past that they are not in favour of a hard Brexit. In the past, they weren't even in favour of a deal Brexit. So also the British people have to know they can take the deal and leave EU, or they can not take the deal and remain in EU.
So it's just confusing,
these are the 2 opportunities. And of course, the border between Ireland and Great Britain has to remain open. The border between Ireland and Northern Ireland has to remain open. That's so important after the Good Friday Agreement and the peace we have experienced that time. That's even more important than the games Boris Johnson is always trying to play. It was insane that he actually tried to kick out parliamentarians from their offices. And I'm more than happy that the highest court put, obviously, as I understand, the parliament back into charge. And it's parliamentary diplomacy.
So is there anything that will be accepted? I mean, you were saying that the Irish government was, Republic of Ireland was trying to, distance itself from even this idea. Is there anything, anyway, that will be acceptable? Apart from the no border, is there any other idea that will be acceptable?
Yeah, I mean, every message that, and again, I'm a new MEP, but every message that we read, that I'm hearing from on Taoiseach, from the party Fine Gael as a whole, from the people living north and south of the border, is the fact that our peace process has to remain intact. But we also have constituents, both north and south, trying to live their daily lives. I sit on PESH here, our Fisheries Committee. We have fishermen and women coming from Donegal to Dublin, and the fact, I mean, over my campaign for EU, one fisherman would have had to go across the border 8 times in order to transport goods. So we need to protect the fact that we have a single market, the fact that the withdrawal agreement is there. Nobody, I think, outside of Boris Johnson wants a divorce.
Yeah, I mean, all I would add to this, though, of course, there is a catch-22 situation for the Irish government, which is essentially by insisting on the backstop, they have made the possibility of a no-deal Brexit more likely. And in doing so, a no-deal Brexit will lead to a hard border on the island of Ireland and to economic disaster, as some would see it, in both Northern Ireland and in the Republic. So, this is the whole point, is how far is Dublin willing to push this to potentially lead to Britain leaving the EU without a deal.
Right.
All I would add is, and I know you represent these people, having grown up on that border, that uncertainty, the people who actually live there,
I mean, this is the story that the effect
not
on real
very
people.
Good. Yeah.
That is exactly, I mean, this is something that we probably have to discuss a lot more, is how it affects people. Well, let's move away from the Irish border because, there are other things going on. In relation to Brexit, the Conservatives are congregating in Manchester, this for their yearly conference, as we saw our correspondent there, a chance for Boris Johnson to set out his vision for the country's future. But things aren't going exactly to plan. And here's everything you need to know in the Brexit brief. It wasn't exactly a warm welcome.
Why did you like the Parliament, Boris? Why did you like the Queen? When are you going to resign, Boris?
Boris Johnson leads his party into Manchester for its annual gathering, but more questions than answers. It's a conference overshadowed by allegations that Mr. Johnson, while Mayor of London, failed to declare close personal links to a female tech entrepreneur who received thousands of pounds in public business funding and places on official trade trips. Allegations Boris Johnson denies. What he wants to be talking about, the turning on of the spending taps, as announced by Chancellor Sajid Javid.
This government is going to build Britain's future and bring in an infrastructure revolution.
But at this conference, Brexit and no deal is never far from the spotlight.
We're ready to draw on the full armoury of economic policy if needed.
In Westminster, opposition parties plotting. But moves to bring a vote of no confidence in Boris Johnson seemingly on hold.
We'll do a motion of no confidence at a point when we can win it to be clear that no deal has been taken off the table.
Back in Manchester, outside the conference, the message is clear. Inside, however, Boris Johnson's tight-lipped chief advisor isn't giving anything away.
Can anything stop Brexit, Mr. Cummings?
What can you say?
Anything at all? Can the law stop Brexit?
Oh, just very quickly, I'll go to you, Lucas. Do you think that the October 31st deadline will be kept?
No.
No,
I
not at all.
can't go deeper into that because actually, personally, with personal friends, I have some bets running that there will not be a Brexit at all.
Right.
Since it would harm British people, it would harm all Europeans, especially Irish Europeans, all Europeans,
I wonder if
and
there's
especially
even any
the Brits.
disagreement there. October 31st, will it happen?
I would hope an extension comes in on October 31st just to allow the UK to figure out their divorce mechanisms and then allow... But I don't know if that's going to solve anything.
Right.
But from what I do know, whether there be a Brexit, I just hope there's not a hard Brexit.
Yes or no?
The win, I mean, I think it's very, very unlikely that the UK is going to leave on October 31st for a whole range of reasons. The winds at Westminster seems to be blowing in the direction potentially of a second referendum ahead of a general election. But there will have to be something, I think, for the European Union to agree to that extension.
Right.
And there will have to be either an election or a referendum. But as I said, the mood music at the moment apparently is on a referendum before an election, which would be interesting.
We are on Brexit month, so it's the 1st of October, so we will see that very, very soon on what's going to happen. OK.